Okay, welcome back to the main basketball rankings podcast. I'm your host, Lucas McNally. With me today is the resident Miami Heat fan, Mike Mandell. Mike is from the Kennebec Journal, Morning Sentinel, and the centralmaine.com. So you've been reading him for a while. Thanks for joining me.
Glad to be on, Lucas.
So I wanted to have you on because I had this idea last night. I was like, oh, I should have a Heat fan on. And I'm like, who do I know that's a Heat fan? I'm like, oh, Mike Mandel will do it. And so we're going to talk a little bit about Heat Celtics.
Yeah.
So here's my first question for you is how does someone become a Heat fan? Is it a like Alonzo Mourning thing? Like where did you go wrong?
So I've kind of, if you know me, I've kind of been like nomadic, kind of living, kind of all over the country, over the course of my life. So it's been very rare that I've attached myself geographically to one team. I basically I kind of fell in love with the Shaq and Wade team back in '06, and
Mm.
then I know this is much to your chagrin, but LeBron is my favorite NBA player, and when he came to the Heat, it just kind of it just I just started loving them more, and when he left, I kind of bandwagoned the Cavs a little bit, but I couldn't become a Lakers fan. I just don't like the Lakers, so
Oh
I
my
so I
gosh,
was
no,
like,
you
all
can't
right,
do that.
I started riding the Heat again. So yeah, yeah.
It's usually like that, isn't it? It's that one team that gets you and then you're like stuck. Like I'm a Duke fan because I read an article about Bobby Hurley when he was in high school and I was like, "Oh, that guy sounds awesome." And then now I'm just a Duke fan and so it's coming full circle for me with Cooper going there. I'm like, "Okay, it's cool again."
Yeah, no, absolutely. The reason I'm actually a UNC fan is because my mom went to med school there, and she actually was there when Michael Jordan was there in the '80s. So,
Oh, that's cool.
yeah.
Did she know Jordan at all or
No, she did not, but she fell in love with Carolina, and then that's been my team. So,
then he gets handed down to you? Yeah, I'm a Celtics fan because I'm from Maine and it's got handed down. You're like, "No, no, no, you're a Celtics fan." I tried to be a Rockets fan for like a minute because for the 86 series, I was like, oh, Rockets are cool. And I learned very quickly that that was not an okay thing to think in our family. So, how are the Heat fans feeling about this? Because you don't have Jimmy Butler. He's out. Is he out for the whole series, we think?
I don't know if it's been declared that he is out, but it's in all realistic list. I don't think I don't see how he's going to play, and then I question whether we're going to see Rozier as well. Um,
Right.
I think it's. I think there's. I mean, it's Heat Celtics. It's always something that both fan bases get excited for because we've had two epic series the past 2
Yeah.
years. And so it is excited, and it's the Heat in the playoffs, and Spoelstra always had something. I think there is kind of resignation to the fact that it's going to be a little tough this year, and that we're probably not going to pull it off. Who knows? We do have a winning record without Jimmy. Obviously, it takes a lot more than that to beat Boston. But yeah, it's one of those things where I guess it's a feeling of why not, right? Because there's no reason to suspect. I feel like there's no pressure on a team that has that's without its best player, and there's nothing to lose. And if if we lose, I don't think anyone could say they didn't see that coming. But
Right.
if we pull it off somehow, then yeah,
I mean, you're playing with house money right now. So
yeah, exactly,
it's
exactly.
like everyone's sort of so basketball reference has this at 93.5% Boston. The Ringer has it at 98% Boston. They're all pretty much like that. I think DraftKings has Boston at negative 3,000 to win the series or something
Yeah.
like that. So I mean, no one's ever the expectation is if you guys I think get it to 6, that's probably a bit of a moral victory.
Yeah, I think I was kind of thinking about how this. I was kind of thinking about this after you asked me to come on, how I think the series might unfold, and I think it could be a thing where I could see. I mean, anything could happen, obviously, but I could see Boston. I could see Boston taking game one easily. I honestly could see it unfolding a lot similarly to how the finals did last year for the Heat, where the Denver took game one easily. The Heat one game two and maybe kind of put a fear into the pit of the stomach of Nuggets fans or Heat haters, and then the Nuggets kind of cruised from there, with the exception of one game I think was close. And that's kind of how I see it when I step back and look at it. It's like, okay, ignoring your fandom, how do you think this series is going to go? I think to
Right.
me it keeps settling on the Celtics in 5 number. I just think you guys have too much firepower for even the Heat at full strength. I mean, this would have been a tough series. Spoelstra is probably good enough to pull out one, maybe the Celtics fans, maybe if the Heat win an early game, the Celtics fans do get the feeling of, oh no, here we go again. But at the end of the day, it's really tough. It's really tough for me to see the Heat winning series. So I tend to agree. I tend to agree with all those numbers, something in that 93-98% range. Is, call me a bad fan, say it's bad juju, whatever. But I think in this instance, the numbers don't lie.
Well, I didn't think UMaine was going to beat Ohio State in the tournament, so I was hoping, I was like, maybe.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking earlier today that exact scenario of where the Heat take game 2, and I'm like, oh my God, that is just going to be a meltdown on the sports talk radio scene in New England. It's going to be like a nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's like you can see the fans typing already, fire Missoula, like all that,
Yeah.
all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, I could see something like that happening. But Boston, and I think the difference this year is, I mean, the Celtics were a good team as it was last year, but and I know you're Marcus Smart. I know you're Marcus
I
Smart's.
love
I
Marcus
know you're
Smart.
Marcus Smart's strongest soldier. So I know this. I know you kind of lamented this, but what they did offloading him and getting Porzingis and Malcolm and not Malcolm Brogdon, Drew Holiday, excuse me, has really turned them from a very good team to a great team. I mean, it could be a historically great team. I mean, just looking at my notes, what is it? 11.4% point differential per game,
Yeah.
trailing only the 72 Lakers, the 71 Bucks, and the 17 Warriors the first year they had KD. So, I mean, that's incredible. That's incredible stuff right there. And yeah, I think it's I know it's maybe I know it's maybe a matchup that gives Celtics fans a little knots just because it is the Heat and what's happened the past 2 years, but I do see it going a little differently this time. I think the Porzingis and Holiday acquisitions have played out exactly as the Celtics brass hoped they would.
Yeah.
And that's I think that's going to make this year. I think that's going to make the difference. And again, uh, again, Bam, one of my favorite players. But listen, Porzingis has a good 5-6 inches on him. Like it's tough. It's really tough.
I think what's crazy about, because they keep showing the point differential that list of the top 10. What's crazy to me is that like 2 of those are in the same year. I think it's the 72-73 season. It's like the Bucks and I forget who the other team is. And I'm trying to imagine like living that year in real time where you have these two two of the 10 most dominant teams in the league playing in the same season,
Yeah.
and then just waiting for them to meet in the NBA finals must have been really cool. Like, I don't think they really tracked scoring differential back then or even paid attention to it, but that just had to be like a really weird season to watch.
Yeah, exactly. And you got some other, you got some other teams up there. I think one of the other Warriors teams was also up there.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Heat, the year they won 66 with LeBron and had that 27 game winning streak, was also up there. But yeah, I mean, the Celtics team has a chance to be historically
Yeah.
great. I mean, winning 64 games in this NBA is hard. I mean, you look at how much better. I was just telling a friend the other night. I remember I think it was '04. The Celtics won 37 games and they made the playoffs
Yeah.
with Antoine Walker and Paul Pierce. And
It was rough.
now the Heat won 46 games and they had to win a play-in just to
Yeah.
get to the playoffs. So I know obviously the West is still the tougher conference, but the East has closed the gap has closed the gap. You have a lot of teams in that 46 to 50 win range, and then you have the Celtics, which are in another stratosphere with the rest of the conference. Yeah,
It's crazy. It's crazy that we were able. I say we like I'm on the team. That we were able to like clinch. I think we clinched the 1 seed before anybody else had clinched a playoff spot
crazy,
in
isn't it?
the NBA, which is unfathomable.
Yeah,
To like, how is that even possible? To be like that far? Like they haven't played a game that meant
yeah.
anything in a month
Yeah,
or so.
because not to say this, not to say that the Celtics faded it toward the end of the regular season, but they did kind of slow down from the astronomical pace that they were
Yeah,
playing at. They were probably on pace to win a 67, 68 win team. I think they ended up with 64, which
yeah.
is fantastic regular season in this league. Uh, so yeah, it's pretty crazy when you think of not only that, but not only how much they could have won by. And I know there's another side of that too, which is that Cleveland and Milwaukee kind of faded hard toward the
Oh
end of the
yeah.
regular season. I still can't believe the Bucks didn't end up with couldn't hit the 50 win mark with the roster they have. But yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting, and I just don't see any threat to Boston out of the East. I mean, I'm not saying. I mean, look, anything can happen. Injuries can happen.
Hmm.
There could be another player on the Knicks or the Bucks or whoever you guys end up playing in the semis or the conference finals who did to you what Caleb Barton did in the conference finals last year. You just don't
Oh,
know. But
that was painful.
yeah, you're gonna get one of those. You're gonna get one of those performances inevitably, and it's about being able to withstand it. So, I think, but I think it's all. If I was going through this, and I have a. I don't think OKC is ready for this yet. I have Denver
Yeah, I
coming out
don't
of the
think so
West,
either.
and then I have the Celtics over the Nuggets in 7.
I'm really hoping Denver doesn't come out of the West because that's the team. That's really the only team that scares me. But
Yeah,
that's also just me being optimistic, overly
yeah,
optimistic, and hoping the Celtics can finally get this done. Um, yeah. So I think it's interesting that the bracket is wide open for us this year, which worries me a little bit because at heart, we're all of us New Englanders are pessimistic Red Sox fans who are waiting for the sky to fall. So I see it wide open. I go, oh, that can't be good.
yeah,
Something terrible is going to happen
yeah.
here.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of a tendency in sports. Like you think, you think, okay, this should be pretty chalk, right? Well, there's always that one X factor. And we see it every year here in Maine high school hoops with the tournament. And
Hmm.
just you think you got it all figured out, and then like. There were a few teams this year where I thought I'd had it all figured out that they were going to win a gold ball, and then they kind of faded, and you can see the cracks start to show, and then they lost. But and again, that could happen. But I think the Celtics roster is so complete. The gap, especially in the East. Once you get to the finals, it's a whole different ball game. I mean, it's
Right.
and anything can happen when you're playing a team against a team from the West. But I just think the gap is too large that it would take one of those outside things I'd mentioned that for Boston, uh, for Boston not to win it.
Yeah, and I think one of the advantages of having that massive lead and like for the last month, I don't know how many games you watched, but they were really screwing around. And not in a bad way, and more of a what happens if we play this lineup?
Yeah,
What about this lineup? What if we do this? What if we like shoot left-handed today? You know, what what things can we try? And like Missoula almost lost. We almost lost a game because Missoula's like, no, I'm leaving the bench in, and I think it was against. I forget who it was against, but they were on a run. He's like, no, I'm not putting the starters back in. You just figure it out, and they held on, and they got a game winner by Tillman of all people, and I think it was his first shot made in the final 2 minutes in his NBA career or something
Yeah.
like that.
Well, wasn't there one game in that stretch where I think you guys blew like a 27-30 point lead and lost or something?
Yeah.
And again, you can hear that new Boston talk radio start there. But again, it kind of figures back to that same thing where, you know, you're locked into that one seed for a good month. And it's again, I guess it's first world problems, but
Right.
it's like, okay, what do we do? like
Yeah, that
like
was the Dean Wade game where Dean Wade went like eight
yeah
for 10 from three in the fourth quarter or something ridiculous. And you're like, well, I mean,
yeah
if you're
that
gonna
was
do that, what are you gonna do?
that was us with Tobias in the first play-in game.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, fortunately, uh, fortunately the Bulls are a mess, and I don't even know how they won 39 games to begin with. But
They're interesting. Kobe White looks like he could be something.
I mean, they have pieces. I just think it's a knowing the Reinsdorf, I feel like knowing the Reinsdorfs, I feel like there's a lot more they can do to help that team win. They've never even gone over the luxury tax, and like
That's
here's
I
some of the
saw
richest
that
owners.
today. That's insane.
Yeah, right.
That's
Yeah,
insane. Also, Kobe White, like just the combination of the beard and his smile and the hair, if
yeah.
you ran into him in a dark alley, you would be terrified.
Yeah, oh, I remember his hair was something when he was at Carolina, and then and
Hmm.
then now it's like it's like, wow. I mean, it's like reminds me of Arizhao back in the day.
Oh geez, yeah. Yeah. All right, so like let's look at this. If put your Heat glasses on, what's the path for them to win this series? What has to happen other than Caleb Martin shooting 60% from three or whatever he did last year, which was just insane?
um they have to Bam is going to have to find a way to win that matchup.
Ooh, yeah.
He's played somewhat. I mean, that matchup is the key to the series. If he can win it, it's a series. If not, Boston is going to sleepwalk into the semis.
Well,
And
he's got to do it against or Horford. He's got to do it against Horford too.
exactly. And it's a he has done okay in the three games. I mean, you look at the three games they played this year. The Celtics, I think, won by 40, but the others were relatively close games. Obviously, Jimmy
Hmm.
Butler played in those. But Bam did have some success, and he's gonna have to do that. The other thing is, the Heat's success comes kind of unusual in this day and age, but it's in that mid-range game. If you look at the Heat, they're
Hmm.
the number one team. They're the number one NBA team in mid-range shooting. 35.6
Really?
35.6% of Miami's points come in the mid-range, and 27.1% of those points are from the short mid-range, which is also first in the NBA. Um,
But how much of
um,
that is Jimmy?
a decent amount, but a lot of it is also Bam. You look at Bam; he kind of plays out. He kind of sags off from the post sometimes. He can hit those short mid range floaters. And against Porzingis, he's going to have to do that.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean it's going to take that. And the Heat do that well, but the Celtics also defend that type of basketball well. So it's going to take that type of perimeter shooting. Obviously. And yeah, you say aside from Caleb Martin doing what he did last year, I mean, yeah,
I hate him.
they're gonna have to shoot they're gonna have to shoot better than they've shot this season. Um,
Hmm.
and you know, I mean that's what it took last year, and it's gonna take that and then some again this year.
Well, they're
Can
not
they
as
do it?
bad as they were last year at shooting. They're like I think they're 12th in three pointers, 3 point
Yeah.
percentage, and last year they were almost last. So if they can maybe make the same improvement as they did last year against
Yeah.
us, maybe that could do it.
Well, Duncan Robinson kind of reverting back to some of his. Duncan Robinson is one of those players you never know if there's been seasons in the past where he's been unplayable because of his defense, and then there's years like this year where he's emerged as like a major part of the as a major part of the offense. And I think his kind of reversion to the mean almost has made it a better shooting team. He's also going to be a big piece in this series. He's going to have to really get hot. Because otherwise, I mean, the Celtics, we talk about what Porzingis does Porzingis and Holiday have done for them offensively, but it's the Celtics defense to me that really stands out, and I think it's going to help to have Hero. It's going to help to have Hero, and he's uh, the the Heat don't have necessarily a true creator in the way a lot of teams do. He's probably the closest thing to it.
Right.
I do think the Heat missed him against the Celtics last year. I know there's a lot of people who say, well, his backups played better than he would have, but I think him being in that role, I think him being out did hurt in that sense because the way the offense flows is just much differently. The Heat, you look at those Heats, they want to look at the way the Heat won that series last year, and a lot of it was on the defensive end. And then
Right.
like you said, Caleb Barton shooting better, shooting the way he did. So I think that will help. But then on the other side, we're missing our best player, Jimmy Butler. So it's gonna
So
be tough, man. This is a Celtics team that's a lot better. I mean, we talked about it in the offseason. The Heat kind of bet the farm on trying to get Damian Lillard to come, and it didn't work. And as a result, our roster got worse while yours got better.
and so here's the thing with Hero is who does he guard? Right? Because his defense is not, from what I've seen, not great. And last year, you could sort of hide him on Marcus Smart because, as much as I love Marcus Smart, he was the weakest offensive player on that team. Like, so you gonna put him on Holiday? Like, I feel like Drew Holiday will eat him alive on the other end.
I mean, the Celtics can kind of eat the Celtics kind of eat anybody alive.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. You're gonna have to, I guess.
Because I was reading online something today. John Corrales, who's much smarter than I am, pointing out that it's going to be hard for the Heat to run that zone because the Celtics can just send Porzingis to the free throw line, and then that's what kills his zone like that. Is you send him there, he can shoot over anybody who's there, or he can kick it out to he'll have then four shooters spread out around the court, and they can just rain threes all night. So, I mean, that's where you hide Hero on defense is in a zone like that. But if you can't play that zone, that makes it a lot harder. But you need him on the floor for your offense. Is I guess the prisoner's dilemma there.
I mean, it's you're kind of in that position, and it's been a lot of the way with Duncan Robinson for the Heat too. I mean, like I said, there's been years where his like. I mean, there's been years where he couldn't guard his lunch, and it's just like, okay, you're going to get a three, but then he's just going to get turnstiled at the other end.
Right.
Yeah, it's tough, and Boston they have so many ways. They have so many ways to exploit you. They've built this roster almost perfectly. I know. I know it's taken a while for the picks that you guys amassed, starting all the way with what Danny Ainge did, trading Pierce and KD and Terry to the Nets to get some of those picks. But you're to that point now where that build has kind of come, and this roster is so. I mean, you had a finals caliber's roster the past 2 years. You took the Warriors to 6 2 years ago. You probably should have beaten us if we're being serious last year, and then.
Mm-hmm.
So you take a roster that's basically been finals caliber 2 or 3 times, and you add what you have. It's tough, and it's tough, and there are teams out there that I think can give Boston a series. But I just don't think Miami. I just don't think Miami is there this year, and it's going to take some more roster tooling. Harrison and Riley getting a little more creative in the offseason to kind of figure out, okay, where do we go from here? But that's why we play the games.
Yeah, I feel like we've gotten unlucky the last 2 years because we got the best 2 weeks of Andrew Wiggins' life against Golden State, where he just suddenly became like a superstar for like 2 weeks and then turned back into Andrew Wiggins. And then you guys got historically hot from three last year, and then we sort of screwed around for the first two games, I think, thinking, we got this. And then Tatum got hurt in game 7. And I don't know. I still think we win game 7 if Tatum doesn't get hurt on like the first 3 minutes or whatever it was of that game. But okay, so
Yeah.
what do the Heat do going forward? Okay, I'll let you finish. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I'm here or there without one. It could have gone either way, really.
So what did the Heat do? What's the move going forward? I mean, it sounds the rumor is Dame might be available again. So they could always try to trade for Dame again.
Yeah, I mean, we lost a lot in the offseason. You know, Struess and Gabe Vincent really broke out. And as a result, guess what? They got paid, and we couldn't keep them.
Good, good for
Uh,
them.
yeah. So you know that makes it different. You know, I'm not. We're in a position where even with offloading Lowry, and some of the moves we've made, it's just the cap space is they call it cap hell in the NFL, and I could see, and
Mm-hmm.
I think the Heat are kind of are kind of in that same spot. So it'll be interesting. Again, Pat Riley is more creative than a lot of people and can probably make that work. But yeah, it's gonna be tough. And then people talk. We heard in the offseason like, okay, the Heat didn't go hard enough after Lillard, and I was like, I feel like the Heat went plenty hard after Lillard. We just didn't have the assets that Portland
Yeah.
want, and Milwaukee did. And I think that's and I think that's the difference. So if you put all your eggs into a basket that just doesn't pan out, and you're left in a tough spot. Now it's again it helps to have Eric Spoelstra, but
Mm-hmm.
it's I don't know. It's gonna be a tough spot for a few years.
Here's my Eric Spolstra question. This is maybe a bit of a hot take. Everyone says he's the best coach in the league. But my question is, if you're the best coach in the league, why are you in a single elimination game to get into the tournament, to get into the playoffs 2 years in a row? Why aren't you best coaching the league your way to the sixth seed or the fifth seed?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm not sure who I would say the best coach in the NBA is. You know, this year the Heat's problem was injuries. I mean, with the exception of Bam and one or two other guys, not a single nobody played more than 60 games.
Jeez.
But Butler's been out a lot. Hero's been out a lot. Um, all those guys have missed significant time. So you get to 46. I think getting to 46 this year, I think, is actually a good indication of where we. Last year was more embarrassing with having to get to 44 wins, losing the 7-10, losing the 7-8 playing game, and I don't think people remember how that the Heat were losing the elimination 8-9 game to the Bulls with
Oh, yeah.
3 minutes left, and then made a miraculous run from there. I mean, you talk about odds. I wonder what the Heat's odds were at that point in the game to get to the NBA Finals.
You could have made
Probably,
some money.
yeah, exactly. So, I do think Spo has done a good job this year. I think again, I think I think, like I said, the difference in the offseason, the Celtics went out and got better. The Heat put all their eggs um uh into the Dame Lillard basket, and they didn't get it, and as a result, we got worse. So it's
Yeah.
just a matter of it's just a matter of how you're going to navigate that cap hell situation. And yeah, it's a tough spot, but you know, you see guys break out, guys retire, and you just got to see what you can do.
The way the Dame thing has worked out in Milwaukee, which has not been great, I don't think. Is part of you happy that you didn't get him?
Oh no, I would have loved to have gotten him. I mean, I mean, it's a was it a slam dunk? No. But I think we would be in a better position that we are now, going forward, with him, and him and Jimmy would just be such an incredible combination, in terms of what they how their skill sets complement each other, that I do think it would have been. I do think it would have been hugely beneficial. But at the end of the day, we didn't have the assets to do it.
How do you think the Rozier addition has gone? Because I love the guy from when he was with Boston, but it doesn't seem like he's been a huge factor in Miami.
He's great when he can stay on the court. He's been dealing with
Right.
what neck spasms the past few weeks, which is the problem. I don't think we're gonna. I think we might see in this series. I don't think you're gonna see him in a position where he can make as much of an impact as he needs to in this series. It was a great deal offloading Lowry, who
Oh yeah.
and then getting him. But yeah, it's can he stay on the court? And Yeah, yeah, and yeah, it's tough. It's we need him, and we're not gonna probably get him, which is bad.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how many injuries uh, Miami's had because they have this reputation as having like a good medical staff, right? Like, but if
Not as
they
good
just
as
have,
Phoenix's, but yeah. Uh, and I do think part of it, it's been interesting to see. It's been interesting to see over the past few years, kind of like the injuries stack up. We do this thing where we rest guys as much as we do, and you have guys playing like 60 games a year and thinking it's going to keep us healthier, and now they're getting even more injured.
yeah, it's that's. I almost wonder if it's the rest if we're resting people too much because you take like if you're a runner, you take too many days off, then you start to get rusty, and that's how you end up hurting yourself when you try to run a race that you're not fully trained for.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and yeah, maybe that is something that maybe that is something that gives the Heat more of a shot than I'm giving us credit for this series. Would be kind of like you alluded to earlier in this conversation, where you're like, okay, how much time have the Celtics spent toying with lineups versus having their initial lineup on the floor? And you would know the answer to that question a lot better than I do. But
Yeah.
is there going to be some? Have they done that enough where it could be some struggles playing that lineup, which they
I
haven't done as
mean,
much early in the
hell, we were
season?
starting Peyton Pritchard once a week down for
Yeah,
a while there, and he's the greatest bench mob player like in NBA history. He's like a walking triple double in those games, which is hilarious to me. But yeah, I mean, they haven't had that full lineup. I don't know. It's been a couple games since they clinched, but even during the season, they rested Porzingis and Horford didn't play both ends of a back to back all year, which was smart because they're injury prone guys. And yeah, we
Horford,
had a
what,
lot of rest.
17th in the league? Yeah.
What's that?
Horford, what? This is his 17th year in the league. I mean,
Something like that.
he's
He's
no spring
amazing.
chicken, and he played 3 years at Florida, so he's got to be in his late 30s. Yeah,
Yeah, I think he's like 37, 38, something like that.
yeah. Jeez.
And he's still humming along. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's fantastic. And I think one thing that like we got very lucky in that the guys we traded got hurt because this season looks much different for us if we don't make those if we keep Marcus Smart and Time Lord and they both basically didn't play all year. That's a much different season for us. Then we're seeing a lot of Peyton Pritchard this year.
yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, what it's a I mean, your front office has done an amazing job at finding those guys and basically turning everyone you have into a workable player, and also being willing to take guys like Time Lord and Marcus Smart, who are huge assets and fan favorites, and knowing that, okay, we can use this to get even better, and identifying those ways. Uh and and again that's why you're here in this position where you're probably the favorites to win the title.
Yeah.
And Yeah, I mean, it's just like I said, the Holiday and the Porzingis additions have just really elevated your squad from, again, an already good squad. I mean, you were in the finals 2 years ago and we're on the verge of it again last year, and now here, and now it's, I mean, it's pretty much, again, anything can happen, but it looks like it's as clear a path to ever for you guys to do something.
Yeah. Did you see the Boston Globe article about Sam Hauser
I did
with
not.
his? Okay, so it's a really great article. The Adam, what's his name, wrote it. Not Adam Robinson, but the Adam who writes for the Boston Globe. Um, wrote this thing about how because he was an undrafted free agent and so basically there's this flurry after the draft as you know, and he had offers from 3 or 4 different teams. It was us and it was somebody else and then it was the Heat. And it came down to us and the Heat, and he was the big difference, or one of the two big differences were one was Brad Stevens, obviously. And then the other one was that Miami offered him a spot on the summer league team and a chance to compete for a two-way deal, and Boston offered him just a two-way deal. So he took the sure thing. So what does this team look like with Sam Hauser? If we move Sam Hauser over to Miami, and Miami's very good at developing these guys, then you've got Duncan Robinson and Sam Hauser, the two white boy shooters on this team. Is that like? I think that's
Well,
a big swing.
well, you got yeah. I mean, it could be. I don't think it would be. You could see an improved team. I don't know if that would be the kind of move that would be
It's not earth
earth moving,
shattering.
earth
Yeah,
moving. But you're right. You're right. The Heat are really good at finding those players and developing. But so is Boston.
yeah. And I'm wearing this Red Claws hat. That's they did a great job developing him. I found this like earlier today, and I was like, "Oh, this is great! I'll wear it on this podcast. It'll be fun."
It's a travesty. It's a travesty that's not still the name. It's like
It's it's terrible. Like it doesn't make any sense. And then there's still a lobster on the court.
They turn the lobster green.
It is green, which is weird. And it's just why do they need to have the same name? Why do they need to be the Maine Celtics? But then I guess there was talk of them moving to somewhere else and like somewhere in maybe Springfield or something. And so I guess when they renamed it the Maine Celtics, does that help keep them in Portland? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah,
It is what it is.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, I actually didn't realize that they were in the process of. I didn't realize that they were possibly going to move them, but I guess you expect that with G League teams. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's interesting, and then what a season they had this year, making
Oh yeah, that was great.
yeah, yeah, um,
On a crooked floor and everything.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I had never been to the expo before I went down for the tourney championship games, the Class B games
Hmm.
last year, and yeah, cool little building. We have three great high school tourney venues in Maine, and then we have
A hockey rink.
the Cross Insurance Arena in Portland. Yeah,
Which I forget who said it, but they were like, it was one of your cohorts, I think, over there at Varsity Maine, said that when it's bad there, but when it gets really full, like it did for the state games, that building works. Like the Winthrop Gorham game, it was electric in there. And, but for the Coney Brunswick game, not so much. Then
yeah.
it's just a very cold hockey rink with a basketball court on it.
Well, the first time I went there was I covered the MDI GNG girls state Class B game back when GNG was in Class B in 2019.
Okay.
And that was I was still writing my story, and then obviously after that was the Cape Elizabeth Caribou boys game, where Caribou won a double overtime, and yeah, that was electric. I mean,
That was
you would have
awesome.
thought you would have thought Caribou was right next to Portland and not 300 miles away, based on how many fans they brought to that building.
And they had, and I can promise you, because I was up in the hockey press box
Yeah.
and that was on their side, and they were not sober. I can promise you that.
I mean, for that, no comment, but for that drive, I wouldn't blame him.
Well, they all came in because it's so far. They all came in the night before, and they're like, well, if you Caribou to Portland, it's like, I forget how many
Yeah.
miles, 300 miles, I think.
Yeah.
And so you might as well make a weekend of it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like, that's even in Bangor, which is significantly closer for them. It's like
That's still a hike.
yeah, you get hotels, which they can afford to do because you have a tourney, you have a winter break week coinciding with tourney week. See, Maine's smart about stuff like that, and it's been great
Mhm.
this week too because we're on a winter break, or April break, excuse me, and so a lot of the games I've covered have been like noon, 1, 3 o'clock games rather than 5
Yeah,
o'clock games.
which is super helpful when it's not super warm out, and you're
Yeah,
like, any bit of sun we can get is great.
yeah. Oh,
Uh,
it was beautiful up in Madison today. That was a
really,
very yeah.
it
Um,
poured here.
Really? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, not a. It did here until around 11, but then by the time the game started, which was like at 3 o'clock, it was beautiful.
Cool. All right, well, let's do a little spring sports here then. So
Yeah.
what are you most excited about? What's the most interesting thing in your area for spring sports? What's
Um.
sort of the things that are standing out?
I would just say it's the new work stuff. Aside from like the sports things, just like work wise, the things that uh, Varsity Maine is doing with some of our videos now. We got all this cool equipment. We got a big $25,000 grant. We have
Ooh,
to do so. We have cool new mics like Rode microphones, lavaliers. Um, uh, that if you've watched our content on Instagram, you can see putting put doing cool stuff like that. So again, go on our Varsity Main Instagram page, check all that stuff out. It's really cool.
I'm
Uh,
very wary of Instagram with sports
yeah,
coverage for obvious
yeah,
reasons.
yeah.
So I haven't actually seen any of this.
Yeah, yeah. So we got a new work iPhones and stuff with all these like new apps and programs started that allows us to create like a lot of
Ooh,
cool videos and stuff. So we're maybe pivoting away a little bit from game heavy coverage in terms of writing to get the nuts and bolts of your writing and then put together like a video with an interview and stuff like that.
oh,
And
cool.
if you notice that during the tournament, we kind of experimented with that too, but we've really ramped up the project with spring sports. So yeah, check that out.
I might have to
I
pick your
think I
brain on what apps you have because just out of curiosity.
Premiere Rush it's basically if
Okay.
you've ever edited video like using
Hmm.
Final Cut or Adobe Premiere, it's basically that tailored to a phone.
Okay.
And it's super easy to cut and splice and put together video and stuff. So yeah,
I've seen.
check those out, and it goes over really well with the younger generation too, which because that generation is whereas like our generation kind of skews more toward Facebook and Twitter X, whatever you want to call it. That generation
Mhm.
is a lot more Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok heavy, and we're finding it draws a lot of views and stuff. So we
Cool.
got like a we got like we got like a selfie stick that I can use. That's like a Bluetooth selfie stick, so I can have my camera, I can have my phone over here and the button over here, and I could take a picture from like 60 yards away. So cool stuff like that.
I made my own selfie stick for the tournament. I don't know if you saw. I would do like little things from the gyms. And it's a monopod and it's like a little iPhone holder that's attached to the monopod. So then I got to sort of start it and then hold it out like this, and
Yeah.
it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
But
So that's been pretty cool. Again, you can check out all our projects on Varsity Man Facebook. We have a YouTube page. We have that Instagram page. In terms of sports, it's really too early to tell. I mean, classic Maine. I feel like we were so good. We were so good for a good season, and then we have two
that,
early spring snowstorms plus the 3 days of rain last week that kind of put a damper. I mean, I can't tell you how many athletic directors I talked to for stories who were like, "Mike, my field was ready last week,"
yeah,
and then all this happened. But yeah, it was. So it is tough to tell. I think we have some good baseball teams around here. I got to see Skowhegan play today, and I don't think they have quite the pitching staff they do last year. But they have. I mean, they can pound the ball all over the field. Mesalonsky's the same way. Coney had a tough opener, but they're still a good team. In the lower classes, Richmond is probably going to average like 15 runs a game this year. Um,
jeez.
and then in softball, Halldale going for 4 in a row is a huge storyline.
Hmm.
If those seniors can say they want a Gold Glove all 4 years, that'd be impressive. Some really good field athletes in track. I don't know if Central Maine track is as deep as it was last year, the year before, but I think some of the athletes who are at the top. I mean, Billy Albertson is going to go to UMaine on a scholarship, is going to on pace to set all these New England records this year. Yeah, it's an exciting time. And then Mesalonsky lacrosse obviously has state championship ambitions. Yeah, I mean, it should be an interesting spring, and hopefully I think you find out that you can learn fast at this time of year too. It's my favorite my 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 favorite thing each year is a team that was on nobody's radar decides that okay, they're going to be a state championship contender.
That's
So
always fun.
yeah, exactly. I mean we talk I mean we do all these prognostications and predictions, but then you get a team that nobody gave a chance, and they're in there with the championship shot. So I'm excited to see who those teams are. it's a good time of year too. You just to be driving around. Maine's a beautiful place in the spring and summer. It's one reason I came here, and one reason I haven't left 7.5 years later, even though I have no roots in the state at all.
You've been here 7.5 years, really?
In August 2016, I started for the Eldest
Wow.
American. So I've been next Thursday is my 2 year anniversary in Waterville. So
Wow.
so yeah, I did not plan to be an Ellsworth for 5.5 years, but life happens, COVID happens, throwing a wrench into your plans, and then
Yeah.
next thing you know, you're doing that. And yeah, it's I'm excited to see what next, and I've it'll be a good spring, a good summer, and you know, just I had a moment like I tweeted about where I was writing I was writing one of those next um way too early look at 2024-25 basketball, and I'm like, wow, the tournament just ended and I already can't wait for next year. Of course that's changed now with Merrick Smith transferring,
Yeah, that's big.
which has been probably the big main high school basketball news of the off season.
I
But
mean,
yeah,
that makes sense.
yeah, I mean, he's it's I think he's on the verge of taking that next step in his game, and I think a prep environment can take him there. Really excited for him. Good kid. And I'm excited to see how he gets better at in prep ball.
One of the things I think we've got to figure out, and I was talking to Troy Barneys about this, is we've got to figure out like a guy like Cooper's always going to go prep, because if you're the like projected number one pick in the draft, you should go prep, and you should go to the basketball factory and make sure you're the number one pick in the draft. But we got to figure out how to keep guys like, to make it so that a guy like Merrick or a Tegan Pelletier or someone like that, where it makes sense for them to stay. I think that's the level we need to get main high school basketball to, and I'm not sure what that is other than a shot clock, um, and
maybe,
maybe a longer
maybe I don't
season.
know. Yeah, it is interesting. The and it means like this for baseball too. I think because so if you play in theory, the most basketball games you can play in a season is 23. If you win your play-in game, if you
Oh, if
win
you had a
your
playing game, yeah.
if you win your prelim, like uh so for example, back in 2022, where we had the open tournament still, and the one seeds, even if you're a one seed or a two seed, you had to play a prelim game. So like those teams like Yarmouth went 20-3 and won it. I think
Mm-hmm.
like you had I think Central Aroostook went like one of the Aroostuks went like 22-1 or something like that. So, but I graduated high school in Minnesota, and we played 26 regular season games plus 6 tournament games. So
It's a big difference.
to win a state championship, you played 32 games. And even I think Vermont, I think even Vermont, you end up playing 24.
Yeah, that sounds right.
If you're the state champ there, and I think when I covered high school basketball in Missouri, I think that was also you ended up playing 32. So a 20 like and again, I know it's tough. We have a unique environment in this state where it's a rural winter state, and that limits a lot of what you can do. But it is interesting, and it is interesting, and you do wonder, wow, would it be possible to maybe play a 20 game regular season instead of 18. But then
I
again,
mean,
I think you have a lot of athletic directors who are like, wow, I'm already doing enough. I'm already doing enough
yeah.
with an 18 game regular season. Not to mention adding another home game or two.
I mean, as I always point out, the fields are not ready for games, for the spring games. They're never ready for the spring games.
Yeah.
Maybe the spring season starts too soon and the winter season ends too soon, and maybe, push the spring season back 2 weeks, and then the fields might be ready for opening day. And
You
then
could
that's
have
some more time to play basketball.
Yeah, if you could do it, you could condense the schedule. I I I was in a position a few years ago where I was wondering, well, why not like I almost posited if you could do the opposite, that if you could move the regular season for baseball and softball up a week earlier, um,
Hmm.
just on the off chance that we had a week like we did, like, earlier this
Oh,
year,
okay,
where
yeah.
you could get that regular season game or two in potentially at a few of these schools, and that just saves you so much time crunch down the road. I don't think that would ever actually work, but it was something I thought about, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
version of the teams that play a full schedule before Christmas and have
yeah,
banked 3 games over other teams, and then when there's a blizzard, they're like, "Hey, no problem. We have
yeah,
plenty of
yeah,
time to get our
yeah,
schedule in."
yeah,
And then
exactly.
Governor a couple years ago had to play a doubleheader
Yeah.
in basketball.
Yeah. Well, like I remember when I covered in Hancock County, like Deer Isle, Stonington, they would play with their geography it was tough, like because they're an island school playing like the
Oh
Bangor
yeah,
Christians and the Greenvilles and the Machiases, and they all and so they would play 16 instead of 18 regular season games, and they would finish their season like February 2nd, and then you wouldn't play a tournament game till February 20th.
yeah,
Like that's like you haven't played ball in 3 weeks, and sure you can practice, sure you can do a scrimmage, but even no matter how much practicing and scrimmaging you do, that's tough to not be in that actual
yeah,
regulated game environment.
yeah.
um,
You can't really like fake that.
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. So yeah, it is interesting, and it's funny, I've once in a while I'll be writing a story and I'll be going through the archives on newspaper.coms or back when I was for the Ultimate American, we have all like the pages of every edition we'd ever done in bound books in the basement. So
Oh, cool.
I'd be going through those, and like there were years where it's like the MPA used to be way less streamlined in like having like an actual wrap up date. So they would schedule the championship games whenever the schools agreed on them. So
Oh wow.
there would be days like I think one year they didn't play the girls state championship game for I think it was Class B until like March 17th. So
Jeez.
so yeah. So that and again that's kind of the same thing. And the tournament's kind of interesting like that too, because even right now, okay, you play, let's say the Coney girls played Friday, Wednesday, and Saturday, and then you go a whole week without playing another game before playing in a state championship game. So it's like that's and again, basketball is a sport that you can play every night when you need to. So
Right.
being
Yeah,
off
it's
for a
not like
week, that's tough.
baseball.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, baseball is the same day. I, I remember Dan Kane at GSA was like, they played 4 games in a row, and he's like, guys, no complaining. This is baseball. You're supposed to be playing baseball every day.
Yeah, if you have the pitching to do it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And now that's the other thing is a lot of high school kids is not that they don't have it, but their drop off between the number one and the number two is huge. And then you get into the postseason, and man, you think postseason single elimination basketball is tough. Try baseball. It's like you have some of these schools like, okay, how can we pitch so and so this day and make sure he can pitch in the state championship game still. So yeah,
Yeah, that's. I always think. Yeah, I mean, if you've only got one pitcher, and then you got to make sure you don't throw the kid's arm out
yeah,
because no one wants to
yeah,
do that. I mean,
yeah,
I think we had a kid on our little league team when I was a kid who they threw his arm out because it was the '80s or maybe the early
yeah,
'90s, and no one knew anything about that.
yeah, yeah. A 13-year-old throwing 140 pitches in the game was fine because there
That's
was
no
no
problem.
because there was nothing because there was no because the science that said okay, no, it's actually really bad hadn't been done yet.
Yeah,
So
put some ice
yeah,
on it, kid. You'll be fine.
yeah,
Sure, you
exactly.
can't feel anything. That's
Yeah,
it'll be all right. You're young.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And then throwing like and then you had like 12-year-olds throwing like breaking balls too, which which probably didn't help much either.
No, no, it didn't help.
Yeah,
It was a different time.
yeah,
My dogs are barking at something. Probably me. They're so stupid. They're so stupid. All right. Well, I'm gonna have to go investigate that. So let's wrap this up. Tell everybody where can they find you. You're
yeah.
not really on Twitter anymore, right?
Yeah, I'm not really doing work stuff on Twitter anymore. The biggest way is just go to centralmaine.com. You can keep track of all our stories. Varsity Maine on either Instagram or Facebook for high school sports. We and that's again, that's not just us, but that's, you'll also get the Press Herald's coverage. The Sun Journal's coverage will be on there, and then yeah, it's very very cool stuff happening. We're really excited about the projects we're going to be rolling out. It's we'll still be doing a lot of the feature stories, investigative stories, and kind of like human interest stories that people have come to love from us, and then also, but also experimenting with some cool video stuff that seems to be really going, that the athletes and the athletes and even some of our employees doing them seem to love. So yep, you can find us there. Yeah, we're excited for what we're going to roll out this spring. Excited to maybe take a bit of a breather this summer. It's always nice after some intense basketball, and spring sports is a little bit more relaxed, but still,
Yeah.
you get into the nitty gritty there with the championship meets and then the baseball games in the end, and then I'm already looking forward to the Friday Night Lights in 2024, and then the winter nights in basketball gyms next December.
Awesome. And you think Celtics in 5? Is that your official prediction?
When I take my red and black color glasses off, that's where I keep that's where I keep landing on. The homer in me says 6, but I'll stick with 5.
And you can bet. I was tooling around on DraftKings. You can bet that, and you can bet the order of the games. So if you want to, like the order you were talking about, you can get a thing on that. And then I was just screwing around last night at like 2 a.m. and you can parlay Celtics in 5 with Timberwolves in 7, and if you parlay out all 8 of them, it's like $1 will win you $170,000 or something like that.
Jeez.
Which is, I mean, it would be so hard to get that right, but
Yeah.
$170,000 for a buck is pretty good.
Yeah. What a world.
All right. Thank you so much, Mike, for doing this. And I will hopefully see you on a field or at a game somewhere.
Yeah.
In the near future. I got to get out some baseball games.
That's where I always am, man. It's the best job in the world.
Awesome. Thanks so much for doing this. This podcast has been a production of MaineBasketballRankings.com, your source for high school basketball stuff. If you're enjoying this, subscribe and like it and rate it and do all those things, because the algorithms love that stuff. And we'll be back in a couple days with another episode. Thank you so much.